Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. We are, of course, starting a new book. We aren't starting it because we've been doing it for a few years now, but we are in the book of Deuteronomy now, the last of the 5 books of Moses. And just to mention once again, of course, that this consists of essentially Moses's last will and testament, his ethical will to the Jewish people, because this book is couched in first person, where Moses is addressing the Jewish people and trying to warn them about the future, because of course his life is coming to an end, and that's when he made these speeches and trying to encourage and review some of the laws and essentially give them the pep talk not to abandon God. So here we are. Let's find the right place. And here, okay. So he has just said to them, of course, that they are not, this particular generation was not going to go into, or the earlier generation, because this is in the 40th year of their wandering, but that the previous generation was not going to make it into the land of Israel. So he's reviewing that, and he's talking about those people, I assume, who had survived up to that point, and he's referring to them and what they had said. So, v'tapchem, your little ones, asher amarta levaz yihiyeh, whom you said would be taken as spoil, right? Remember this whole edict of the 40 years, the decree of 40 years happened after the incident of the 12 spies and how they believed that they would never make it, that they would fail in their mission to enter the land of Canaan and subdue it. So they believed that their children would be taken as spoil. Uvnechem, and your children, asher lo yad'u hayom tov vara. That at that point, when this edict was being made, right? I think that's the way we'd have to understand it, is that Moses is reviewing what he had told them at that point, right? They are children who at that day do not know tov vara. And I believe again that this, and this is based on what I had learned with my professor at HUC, Hanan Brichto, that this expression tov vara has to do with sexual awareness. In other words, who had not reached puberty. So that would be one way to understand this. Tov vara, literally, of course, good and bad, right? So that certainly would apply to our sexual awareness. Hema yavo shama, they're the ones who will come there. V'lahem etena, and to them I will give it. V'hem yirashuha, and they will in fact inherit it. I don't think there's Rashi on this. Let's make sure. No Rashi yet. Va'atim, as for you, pnu lachem, turn around. Us'u hamidbara, and journey towards the wilderness, derech Yamsuf, by way of the Red Sea. So what I may do is I may go find a map, the map that we had the last time, and see what's going on here. So, pnu lachem, turn around. Amarti lahavir etchem derech rochav. I had thought to traverse you, to have you traverse derech rochav eretz Edom, through the width of the land of Edom, letzad tzafon, on the north side, lehikanes laaretz, in order to go into the land, to enter the land. Kilkaltem, you have ruined it. Ugaramtem lachem ikuv, and you've caused for yourselves a delay. Pnu lachem, again this phrase, pnu lachem, la'achorechem, turn around, in other words, backwards. V'telchu b'midbar, and you will wander in the desert, or go in the desert, letzad Yamsuf, towards in the direction of the Red Sea, or to the side of the Red Sea. Shehamidbar Shehayu Hulchim Bo, because the wilderness in which they were traveling, Lidroma Shel Har Seir, it's on the southern side of Mount Seir, Hayat was. Mafsik Ben Yam Suf, it made a division, created a division, separated between the Red Sea, Lahar Seir, and Mount Seir. That's this wilderness they were in. Ata, now, Himashchu Litzad Hayam. Now, I think I would say, gird yourselves towards the side of or draw yourselves towards the side of the sea. The Tisabavu et Har Seir, and you shall go around the Mount Seir, Kol Dromo min Hamar, Kol Dromo, completely on its southern side, min Hamarav leMizrach, from the west to the east. Let me take one moment and find that map, if I may. Let's see if I can do that relatively quickly. One moment. Here we are. At least I know where it is, and we'll take a look at here. Right, and let's see where we are. That's the one. Okay, let's make sure I have the right. Yep, this is it. Okay, and I will then share it as well. So let me add. I'm going to stop this. See if I can share this as well. Yes. Okay. Let's see if this will work. All right. Do you see the map? Please let me know. Because on my screen I can see it. Would one of you let me know if you can
You
see
see
it?
it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me see if I can enlarge it a little bit more. How far they'd gotten. So, let's see. I believe here is where we're talking about it. This is the point at which they sent in the 12 spies. And now they had to go back and retrace their steps all the way around this. Okay. All that's the 40 years wandering. So you get a sense of where they were. Okay. Okay. Let me go back to the other map, or rather, excuse me, the other state. There we are. Back in Torah Tamima. Okay. So now they've told us bad news, and their reaction, of course, sadly, is very human. V'ta'anu, and you responded. V'tomru, and you said, a lie to me. Chatanu lashem, we have sinned against God. Anachnu, we shall na'aleh, we shall go up, v'nilchamnu, and we shall now wage battle. We'll battle, we'll wage war. V'chol asher tzivanu Hashem Elokeinu, just as according to everything that the Lord our God has commanded us. V'tachgaru ish et klei milchamto, and every man girded the weapons of war. V'tahinu la'alot, and again, this, at least a quote, sharetom is the Aramaic translation here, which would mean you began. And I've got compare Rashi. We'll see what Rashi says. You began to go up Hahara to the mountain, in other words, towards Mount Seir. And the problem is, it's too late. They had the one opportunity. They decided that they got angry with God and they got angry with Moses, and they lost faith. And so God said, okay, there are consequences of this, and these are going to be the consequences. And now that they had to face the consequences, now they changed their minds, except once again, they are contravening God's decrees. So they don't realize that, again, it's, forgive me for what I'm about to say, drum roll, ain't no one going to tell me what to do, that kind of attitude. And you can see that it does nothing but get people into trouble. Sometimes you have to listen and you have to do, And when you decide you don't want to, and then you now have to face the consequences, because before that you didn't think about the consequences, and then you got to do it again. So now they've doubled up on the fact that they don't want to listen to what God is telling them to do. And of course, the idea being to be able to point the finger to ourselves and ask ourselves if we display similar kinds of behavior or whether we've been able to learn the lesson. At any rate, here is the Rashi, V'tahinu. That's an unusual word, lashon. So he says it's an expression, b'midbar yudalet, from that we can compare it to Numbers chapter 14. Hinenu va'alinu el hamakom, right? So uh, behold, we will go up to the place. So Numbers 14 must be the section of Shlach Lecha, where the Parsha of Shlach Lecha, where this whole incident of the 12 spies is taking place. And of course, there we read how they decide, no, no, no. Now that we have to face the consequences, we're gonna go on in. Zeh halashon shamartem, right? This was the language that you used. Lashon hein, that is indeed. Klomar nizdamantem. And that is to say, I translated this as you conspired, but in a sense, lizamein, right? For example, we have birkat well, I'm not sure if the word no, it's not the zimun, right? We talk about zimun, which is the preparation, right? The organizing. So I've got conspired, which is probably not an accurate enough translation, but something to the effect of
It's prepared here.
yes, yes, right, right. So
And I can see the connection between prepared and conspired because
in
it's
this
like active intention of getting ready to do something.
right, and in this and the context here, of course, was not what needed to be done, and that they were aware of that, right? They knew they were doing something that God had told them not to do. So okay, let's. But again, that's what we mean by when we talk about zimun, is preparing ourselves to say the grace after meals. That's the connection. Vayomer Hashem Eli, and the Lord said to me, Emor lahem, say to them, Lord ta'alu, don't go up, but Lord telachamu, and don't do battle. Ki eineni b'kirbechem, because I am not going to be in your midst. V'lo tenagfu, and you will not be otherwise. I think there it's saying, otherwise you will be struck down lifnei oivechem, from before your enemies. And there's something in that expression of saying that God is in their midst, that possibly it's a way of trying to describe the vagaries of war and why one side wins and the other side doesn't, something to that effect. But here, the whole idea that they're going in was doing this with the presence of God in their midst. And certainly that gives me thought about, when one goes into this kind of conflict, to what degree, what does it mean to say that the presence of God is in your midst? Does it mean you've thought through carefully all the issues, the universal issues that are involved in this, etc.? Because going in knowing that at least you're acting fairly and with a sense of justice, etc., I think is terribly important in terms of giving you spiritual strength. So, uh, Rashi on this, Lo talu, do not go up. Now, do not go up. There's a real feeling here about what does it mean when it says don't go up. Lo aliyah tehelachem. It will not be going up for you. Right? It'll not be a promotion, ela yirida. So if it's not a promotion, it's going to be a demotion. Right? This whole idea. So beautiful little take from a literary standpoint on this particular expression here. Va'adaber alechem, and I spoke to you. Velo shamatem. What a difference. You didn't want to listen, right? You did not hearken. You didn't pay attention. V'tamru, and you rebelled at Pi Hashem, the mouth of God. V'tizidu, and you acted presumptuously, right? So there's three levels of sinning, you might say, right? There is the idea of chait, which means that is when you do something wrong out of ignorance, right? Unintentionally. You're still doing something wrong, and that means there are going to be consequences, but you didn't know that was the wrong thing to do. And then we have, so that's called shgaga, right? And then you have avon, which is intentional, where you knew that what you did was intention. It was something wrong. You were conscious of it and you did something wrong, but not out of a sense of malice, but more maybe out of a sense of laziness or simply stubbornness or something like that, right? And then there's a third level, which has to do with rebellion, where basically your attitude is exactly, God isn't going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do it despite what God is telling me. So, at any rate, that's the Tazidu, Zadon. Vitalu Ha'ara, excuse me, and you went up to the mountain. So, so let's go on. Vayetze Ha'imori, and the Amorite came out. And we know already from our previous study in the Torah that they did in fact fight the Amorites. But this particular group of Amorites, Hayoshev Bahar, who dwelt in the mountain, that mountain, they came out likratchem, to engage in battle with you, in this case, to engage with you. Vayirdefu etchem, and they pursued you. Kasher ta'asena hadvorim, just as the bees can do. Vayaktu etchem, they beat you, they crushed you. Beseir et seir, ad chorma, up until chorma. So this process by which they defended themselves, and you were unsuccessful. Kasher tasena hadvorim, just as the bees do. And I think that this is in some ways an expression because it talks elsewhere about the tzirah, the hornet, that God is going to send in hornets or something. And the fact that here there's a mention of the bees, Rashi's going to tell us that there still was a difference. But I think when it talks about the hornets in that context, it means that the defeat is going to be similar, crushing and swift. So, just as the bees do, kasher tasena dvorim, ma hadvora hazot, just as this bee, keshehi makeh et adam, when it strikes a man, miyad meta, she immediately dies. We know that that's what happens to bees when they sting. Afhem, likewise, these Amorites, kishahayu nogim bachem, when they would literally touch you or encounter you, miad metim, they too would die. So it's interesting, right? It's not completely one-sided, that there's still a sense of God trying to act, perhaps we might say, with equity here and with a certain level of love as well. I mean, this certainly is subject to interpretation. What's the point that's being made here about using the term bees as opposed to hornets or wasps? So just Rashi bringing this out. And we'll try and catch one more. V'tashuvu v'tivku lifnei Hashem, and you returned and you cried before, or you wept before God. V'lo shama Hashem b'kulchem, but God did not listen to your voices. V'lo he'ezin alechem, nor did he give ear to you. There's Rashi on there. V'lo shama Hashem b'kolchem, but the Lord did not listen to your voices. Kiviyachol, it was as if. Kiviyachol is a phrase that's when it's talking about the divine and saying, in some senses, it's not legitimate to speak in this way. But so as it was, as it were, asitem midat rachamav, you turned his quality of mercy, ki'ilu achsari, as if or it was cruelty, that this quality of mercy became a quality of cruelty. So let's take one more just so that we don't necessarily end on such a negative side. Vateshvu b'Kadesh yamim rabim, you dwelt in Kadesh for many, many days. Kayamim asher yeshavtem. This is interesting and it sounds a little puzzling, but it says, like the days which you dwelt. So let's take a look. Okay. You dwelt in Kadesh you remained in Kadesh for many, many days. So in actual fact, it turned out to be 19 years. So they were in Kadesh for 19 years. Shinema, because it says, Hayamim asher yeshavtem b'shar havasaot. So he fills in a gap here, Rashi, and he says, according to the days where you dwelt in the other journeys. Vehem hayu lamed chet shana, and since they were actually on their way for 38 years, if you divide 38, Yud Tet Mehem Asu B'Kadesh, 19 years they were in Kadesh, but Yud Tet Shana Holchim Umeturafim. So, and for 19 years they were journeying and casting about. Is the way I would translate Meturaf. V'chazru leKadesh, and they returned to Kadesh, Kamoshe Nemor, as it states in Numbers 32. Vayani'am bamidbar, so he caused them to travel around in the wilderness. And Rashi gives credit, Kach matzati b'seder olam. This is what I found in this midrash called Seder Olam. Peichet, I'm assuming means chapter 8, and Seder Olam is actually, I believe, a chronology of biblical history, etc. So that's where we're going to stop for today. Okay, I'm going to stop the share, and we'll stop the recording here.